Welcome to today's episode where we explore the powerful intersection of mind, body, and spirit. Our guest is returning author Marvin L. Wilkerson, the insightful mind behind soul fusion healing, integrating mind, body, and soul. Now, in his work, Marvin delves deep into the idea that true healing is not just about treating the symptoms we see on the surface, but about transforming the energy patterns that shape our consciousness. Drawing on his experience as a hypnotist, astrologer, and spiritual guide, Marvin shows us how to release karmic imprints, dissolve subconscious blockages, and reconnect with our authentic self. I think I could do with some of those things. So, in this conversation, we'll talk about how soul fusion healing continues to inspire readers, what it truly means to heal at a quantum level, and how we can apply these principles to our everyday lives and relationships. So whether you're new to spiritual healing or already on your path, today's discussion will help you deepen your awareness, embrace transformation, and align more fully with your higher purpose. And by the way, I'm your host, Chris Dabbs, for today. So here we go. So Marvin, it's wonderful to have you back, and it's great to meet you. So and you're so happy as well, which is really good. Since the release of Soul Fusion Healing, what kind of feedback or stories have you received from readers that really touched or surprised you?
Well, when you've studied something all your life, you never think about the depth that you get into of what you've studied. Having studied philosophy and metaphysics and astrology and hypnosis and all, I didn't never realize how complex the philosophy that I've built and structured in my mind would interact with other people. And that's one of the reasons why when I wrote the book, I used a lot of quotes from the higher minds of antiquity, because truth and universal truths are not just in the present, and it's not just in the last 100 years or whatever. It's over 10,000 years old. Hermetic principles are 30,000 years old. So, it's, I was shocked to, some people didn't like the quotes because it forced them to think, which I should take that as a compliment.
Yes, true.
And then some people just said it was just so heady that they could only read 2 or 3 pages at a time, which, hey, that's where I started out reading Krishnamurti, Think on These Things 50 years ago. Right. So that's kind of been a surprise for me. And I think as people could get more used to higher consciousness and a 4th dimension level of intuition and feeling, I think the book's going to take on a much bigger life of its own.
Oh, that sounds really interesting, actually. And
so
also,
it'll probably outlive me.
Yeah, well, exactly. All of us, I think. But this is the point, though, isn't it? When you're talking about philosophers being thousands of years old, Plato and all of those people, whatever they said back then is still relevant now, right? I mean, not everything.
Oh, but it's very, very relevant. I mean, and I used them in a way that reinforces what I'm saying. And reinforces my philosophy. So I say it in a little more modern Southern way than maybe, people are accustomed to listening to some of the old language and style of communicating. But it all just reinforces everything that I've said. And that's why I put in the quotes. And if it causes you to think for a day or think for 5 minutes, that's what my point was.
That's the whole point, surely, right? To start people on a journey of thought, right? So,
I just need to get you to think.
Yeah, well, me, right? Yeah, exactly. It is the
no, not you personally. I'm just
that's
saying.
What my wife says.
I need to get the person thinking.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So yeah, exactly right. And I was just going to say that's what my wife says. She needs to get me thinking. So I've heard that before.
Wives have a way of doing that. Okay.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, you're right. So okay. So moving on from that, I mean, has your own understanding of soul fusion evolved since the book's publication? I mean, what new insights have emerged for you personally? I mean, is that going to lead into like a second book or something like that?
Well, there's a little confusion around that fusion part and the quantum part. Um, it's you have to understand that there's levels of higher consciousness. There's levels of getting into the subconscious mind where all things exist, all truths exist. And so, sometimes, as a hypnotist, we measure depth, call it a depth scale. Um, Sometimes, and a smoker doesn't need a lot of depth to learn how to stop smoking.
Right.
And a person that wants to go into past lives or something like that, you need to get them into a little bit of depth. If they come in with a last health one that I did was pretty dramatic, was brain cancer. You got to get into a very high level, call it the superconscious mind, call it the quantum field. But this is obviously when somebody goes through an illness or a disease or something, it's karmic, and there's a need to get it figured out. And you got to understand that sometimes it can be a very simple thing that a belief that we've held on to all of our life that maybe was conditioned by parents or other programmers. But that belief is what is going to have to be changed. And when we get into the ability to get into a deep, relaxing state, to get into a more subconscious frame of mind, then then the ego mind stays out of its way. And when we get the ego mind out of the way, we're privy to as much information as we're open to receive. Sometimes I've had people in regression stop right in the middle of the regression, say, stop, I can't watch this. I can't see this. It's very telling when you understand that the subconscious mind will not share with you if it realizes the ego mind cannot handle the information. So just think about that.
Actually, that is something. Yeah. Wow. Sorry. Go on.
So finding a simple way to get into that soul fusion technique, to get into that quantum learning, has been a delightful discovery, and I've used it on a few people, and they really like it because it opens them, it opens their consciousness up to a visualization that I don't have anything to do with. Their higher conscious, their soul, their subconscious is producing that visualization that they need in that moment.
See, I think that's incredible. And being a layperson, I suppose I would do. But the idea of the ego, and then what's the other word? What's the counterpoint to ego? The subconscious. Is there another sort of technical term for that? But that's what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, you can get into the superconscious, and you can get into the unconscious.
Well, oh, right.
The unconscious is much more of an ancestral kind of place in the mind. But the superconscious mind or the subconscious mind is in that state where we release the separateness that we hold. I'm separate from God. I'm separate from other people. I'm separate from things. There is no separation. And this is what we can't, it's hard to get your mind around in a third dimension thinking reality or an ego reality. That everything is connected, even at the cellular level, into the whole universe. not just other people.
Right.
So, I mean, it could be, sometimes that's a dramatic idea for a lot of people.
People just exist, right? Quite often, and don't think about these
Well,
things.
yeah. And I mean, once you have a belief, you're locked into that belief, aren't you?
Mm.
And when you have a belief, well, that belief is going to manifest because that's the way you think. And when you understand that all is mind, and if you think that, or use an emotion that now leaves your greater awareness, well, then obviously it's going to manifest, and it's going to manifest on the body. And so this is why I put body, mind, and soul, because they all are all very much work together. There is no separation.
Yes, sorry, Marvin. It's just really interesting because obviously in your book you're talking about karmic patterns, and this is where you're saying about subconscious reprogramming and things like that. I mean, can these ever really fully dissolve, or do they transform into higher lessons?
Well, there's nothing to dissolve. I mean, you see, this is like you can have an opinion about something, and then something happens in life and you change your opinion.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's a neural pathway that's being redrawn in the brain. So now you leave that belief behind. Doesn't mean it's ever changed anything. It can still be there, but you've got another way of looking at it. And when you look at it from a different perspective and a different perception, well, then your life changes. You're more empowered. You're more self-aware. You won't go down that path again. And that's just simply how karmic patterns and blueprints and all work. Mm-hmm. Once you've changed your response, which is what hypnosis is about, helping you understand and identify what is the belief that's making you have the trouble and the conflict that you're having.
This is it. Okay, so you've mentioned healing, and I think I mentioned the quantum level of consciousness. So that's when we're really drilling down, isn't it, I guess? But for listeners who maybe don't understand that, can you describe what that process feels like in real life? You're as a practitioner, right? You enable us to be able to get to that level, or is that how it works?
Well, I mean, if you can just try to imagine what it would be like to lose that sense of separateness, to lose an identity. I mean, we all have this ego life that says, I'm unique, I'm special, I'm creative, I got that. Or it could be very difficult to do that at a conscious frame of mind. Now, once you go into a sense of deep relaxation, where a lot of people think you go to sleep when you're hypnotized. You don't go to sleep. You get ultimately totally relaxed. And when you're in that altered state, then that's where suggestions can take place. That's where if I give the subconscious mind a suggestion and it sees a better alternative to an old response pattern, well, then it's very happy to use it, because the subconscious mind is always aware of what goes on with the body. So when you're stressed, your body is stressed, and everything is a threat to the subconscious mind that comes with a sense of stress. And so there's obviously something that you believe or think that's causing that sense of stress. A lot of the times what I use with clients is, if you walk into work late, you go, oh my gosh, I'm going to be fired. How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay the house mortgage? How am I going to put food on the table? Even if that doesn't happen, that's run across the ego conscious mind in a nanosecond. Well, that's a threat to the subconscious mind because we're still wired just like our Neanderthal brothers and sisters. If they were late, they got eat.
Yeah, it's true. They didn't get away, did they? No, that's true. So again, fascinating. And you've mentioned astrology. You've studied astrology. Now, I can't. For me, and perhaps a lot of other listeners, we're thinking about astrology as about prediction, things like that. But how does that work with integrating mind, body, and soul? Then?
Well, astrology is an energy map.
Okay.
So energy affects. Energy is everything. What the mind can conceive is constructed with energy. So energy is a dominating force in life, and it's your frequency and vibration which defines what you're experiencing. So that frequency and vibration is mapped out by the varying energies that astrology represents. So if you tell me, let's just say Mars, for example, Mars is the aggression, assertion principle in your life. It's the ambition for desire. It's your energy to go after something. And it's also the procreation instinct. Well, now, if you use that Martian energy to constantly have fist fights or constantly be angry or constantly push up against things that are the way they are, that you want to change them, well, that would be a negative use of that energy, wouldn't you think? When you could adopt a different attitude and then be much more understanding of how you could use that energy to be more creative to whatever is in front of you in the moment, whatever's going on. Could you use it to be more creative? Could you use it to be ambitious in producing the best podcast of your life? Could you use it as an ambition to be a better person in your life? You see, so just that little example, and I mean, it helps define people's natural characteristics. Where are you getting offline with an energy? If you're a codependent, why are you a codependent? What's in your background that's making you put validation in another person to the point that they're part of your survival? See, so yeah. This all is evaluated in an astrological map at the moment of your birth. And if I help you understand that map, and then what you're really trying to accomplish on a soul level, well, that can really alter the way you believe and think about the conflicts that you're having in your life. And you have to understand, people come to me with conflicts. Right. People don't come to me and say, hey, my life is just hunky-dory and perfect. Can you put me into hypnosis or do my astrology? Yeah. People don't come to you like that.
No, that's true. They have a problem that needs to be sorted, right?
And the thing about it is, I mean, if I saw, a conflict with your Martian energy 3 months down the road, I'd say, well, you know what? You need to kind of keep it cool, kind of keep situations with feelings more than emotions, because you'll have a tendency to be very emotional and be easy to upset. So stay within yourself. Now, you can call that a prediction. You can call that whatever you want to call it. But, it's more important for me to help you find a sense of peace in your life with the way you respond and react to life.
Yeah, I see.
And that's where astrology is very important.
It's amazing. I think that you've mentioned it again here. people come to you, with problems, and you've worked with clients as a hypnotist. You've mentioned it earlier on. Regression is something I find quite fascinating, really. Not that I've ever done it, but I'd like the idea of it. You've worked as a hypnotist. You've worked as an astrologer, as you've just told us. So can you give us a real life example, obviously without naming names, where soul fusion healing has led to a remarkable transformation and really helped somebody?
That was a good question, and I enjoyed it, and it forced me to contemplate. And I've worked with thousands of clients, so I was just rumbling around in my brain. Oh my God!
Ooh, yeah.
And it's just like, I said that, I work with brain issues. I've worked with Alzheimer patients and clients, and especially with pain. It's very beneficial with pain because pain is 50% mental. Okay. So, but I come up with a couple of things. How about the person that couldn't take it? He's 60 years old. He comes to me and he can't take a shower because when he was about 3 or 4 years old, his father, he came in after playing in the mud, and his father threw him in a shower and forgot to turn the cold water on and left the hot water on and scalded him. So he had a fear for all of his life of water and taking a bath or taking a shower. Well, I brought his father back into the room, and his father's apologized and said that he loved him and he never meant to hurt him, and he was very sorry for it. When I asked the client, how did he feel about that now? He felt better. He changed. He was able to go take a shower within the next couple of days. How about the little 7-year-old that came to me? His mother brought him to me because he was fear of spiders. Well, I asked him, who is his hero? And he said, Mickey Mouse. And I said, well, is Mickey Mouse a friend of yours? He said, yes. I said, is Mickey Mouse afraid of spiders? Oh, no. I said, would Mickey Mouse help you to not be afraid of spiders? Yes. Yes. And then, how about the woman that comes to me, a cardiac nurse that was highly intuitive, highly psychic, but she was also highly, highly Christian, very strongly. And I said something about, taking her into the white light. She says, oh, no, I don't like white. I can't handle white. I mean, that was a shock to me. And I said, well, I could get you to be able to have a conversation with Jesus. How would that do? Oh, I'm not, I can't have a conversation with Jesus because I'm not worthy. I said, okay. So I took her in, and I took her as deep as I wanted to take her. And she comes straight up out of hypnotic state. And she says, I can't believe it. I just heard a big voice say, I am always with you, my child. It changed her life.
I bet.
It changed her life. So when we look at fusion and soul healing, we're always thinking of these big, monstrous, complicated problems. People have some of the simplest problems in life that really disturb and upset them. I mean, one of the things that that I like to do is help people to see what the issues are, because we don't change unless there's enough pain to change. And so we all have different sorts of pains and conflicts. And so, a lot of trauma release, and soul fragmentation, people are, have a hard time getting their mind around that. When you leave your intuitive feeling of happiness and joy, which is who you naturally are, well, then you're fragmenting. You're using another piece of your personality. Your ego is using another piece of the personality to respond and react to life that is not necessarily in your best interest, that doesn't make you happy, that doesn't free you. And so self-realization is a graduated step from kindergarten to 12th grade. And then you can go into college to get into a quantum level. But as we're moving out of the third dimension reality at this point in humanity's awareness, we're moving into fourth dimension, where intuition, where feelings are vastly more important. And that cuts out the dynamics of the ego, which, by the way, the ego does not allow you to be wrong. It protects you. It makes you right at the expense of making somebody else wrong and you right, whether it is or isn't. So that's what the piece you have to understand about what the ego does is it's a protection mechanism to keep you alive, and it'll create whatever it needs to create to do so. And if it can take charge of your life, well, then you're responding from an ego standpoint of protection.
But that's, yeah, I noticed it. I mean, how does all this work then with people who sort of, repeat emotional cycles or, are using self-destructive things, sabotage, self-sabotage? I mean, how does soul fusion healing help someone break that pattern for good?
Well, with the work that I do and combining the astrology and the hypnosis, it gives me insights into why they're holding on to that external validation. See, anytime that we look to somebody else to approve of us, well, that's an external validation. We don't need external validation from this world. We already have internal validation. Is the only place that really validates us is how we feel and how we can correct whatever's going on. So when somebody is self-sabotaging, there's a huge difference between their head and their heart, their body and their mind. And so you have to try to bring those two together on a philosophical level. What's the belief behind that you can't be supportive of yourself? And a lot of times this comes out of the conditioning, and it's a family pattern. People discount that all the time. When you start working with people, you start listening to about their families. Their families are struggling with the same issues. So when we talk about ancestral issues, that goes from family to family. And so, a lot of times when you're talking about self-sabotaging, or when you're talking about codependency, there's usually a family issue around that, because you have to learn that you need to depend on somebody. Right. Yeah. So that all can be corrected with understanding. It could be through regression. But I like to tell people, we can do a regression, and I can do a regression, and it's not a big deal. But all patterns and all patterns in your life and conditions have already been programmed early on in this life. As hypnotists, we understand that 95% of all people's conflicts was programmed before the age of 7 years old. Now, just think about that. This is pre-verbal. And so that's why you take up so many family dynamics. And then I tell people, when you get 20 years old, you have to start looking at family dynamics of how it responded and start responding in a way that more suits you, that feels a lot better for you, that's a little more mature than the programmers, your mother, your father, your teachers, your siblings, and friends and society. That don't fit me anymore. I'm wiser, more mature. And so that's kind of how you need to approach all conflict. Yeah. I mean, now we use cognitive behavior therapy, where a psychologist can talk to you for, days, months, and years. I've had them come in here 20 years of being in psychoanalysis, but they still have the conflict. They're frustrated because they haven't gotten rid of the conflict.
Well, it would be, yeah. I can understand.
But you can go into an understanding of your energy, how you're using it. You can go into the understanding and the programs of your beliefs and what keeps perpetuating it. And you can have what we call an aha moment.
When you suddenly realize.
Yeah. It changes your life. And that can be, you can't even imagine the simplicity of some of the problems and conflicts. And then you can't imagine some of the horrors that people are perpetuating on themselves through disease and illness. And that conflict. I always thought it was pretty fascinating when Dr. David Hawkins talked about every enlightened being in history, once you reach that level of awareness, has had to heal themselves through a bodily disease. Now, that's pretty quantum, ain't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
When you're an enlightened being, you're in connection with the universal consciousness and the source of all there is. Why wouldn't you be able to heal yourself or whatever goes on with the body, as long as it fits in with your karmic plan?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, I see what you mean. So do you see then that soul fusion healing as a kind of movement that extends beyond the book then? I don't know, through workshops or courses or future writings or things like that?
Well, I think that it can, and if I, if that's what was called me to do, I would certainly love to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, just a basic knowledge of between the astrology and the hypnosis and the working with clients and the coaching, I've gained a pretty great degree of understanding of people's conflicts. And so I think that, but I'm really kind of surprised at this point, with all the conflicts in the world going on right now, how many people are coming into a fourth dimensional awareness of putting more validation in intuition, feelings, and connectedness. And it's I've been pretty surprised by the amount of people that's coming into that. It's been forecasted that we will be going through this, but to actually experience people opening up to metaphysics and to universal concepts is it's beautiful. Einstein said, the more I study physics, the more I believe in metaphysics.
Shows you that. And as you say, the compassion at the moment that comes through in times of crisis is part of it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so, when and I know you're going to ask me about the current stuff that's going on, but you go ahead and you just follow your line. line of questioning.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Well, actually, to be honest, I think we're actually running out of time a bit here, Mark, because we've been talking about so much that's been great. I mean, so if I can ask you, what message or reminder would you like to leave listeners with who are ready to take the healing journey to the next level? Because listening to everything that you've been saying so far is fascinating. It's not just about, as you say, being in psychoanalysis, analysis rather, and nothing really happening. This is about actually doing something concrete, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's walk the talk.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, you know, how many people have a belief system and yet they don't live it? So, I mean, you know, I wrote the book within the hopes of getting people to understand all the tools and all the challenges that we face on a third dimensional human level. A lot of time people come into me saying, I'm spiritual, I meditate 5-6 hours a day. Why are all these bad things happening to me? I said, well, you need to quit being spiritual and just be human. You are spiritual. You don't have to try to be spiritual. You are spiritual. You are forever. So I want people to understand some of the conflicts and challenges that are created within our lifetimes, that we can challenge those beliefs, challenge those conflicts, take responsibility for what's been created in our life because we created it. When you realize that we are co-creators. I mean, I think there was somebody said, ye are all gods. If you're a god and you're creating everything you experience, well, then you have the power to create and uncreated as well. And so I think that that's what I like to do, is help people to understand the vast amount of tools, the vast amount of abilities they have to confront every conflict that you face.
That's pretty worthy, right? So, you know, fantastic. Well, listen, Marvin, we could literally talk about this all night, right?
I could talk to you for days and days and days.
Exactly, exactly. I'm actually really interested in this. I'm going to have to go away, but this isn't about me. This is about you. And listen, listeners, I'm sure you'll agree that that was an enlightening conversation with Marvin L. Wilkerson. Thank you, Marvin. You're the author of Soul Fusion Healing, Integrating Mind, Body, and Soul. You've reminded us that healing is it's a lifelong journey, right? You mentioned that person who couldn't have showers, and you've mentioned that little boy with the spiders and things like that. And it's a journey that invites us to integrate, well, every part of who we are, from what you said, from the physical and emotional to the deeply, deeply spiritual. So if today's discussion resonated with you listeners, be sure to grab a copy of Soul Fusion Healing on Amazon and experience the full depth of Marvin's wisdom, which I think I'm going to do. It's a transformative guide to understanding your inner self, realizing what no longer serves you, and stepping into a life of greater balance and purpose. So thank you for tuning into today's episode. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep listening to the voice of your soul. Marvin, it's been wonderful speaking to you today. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity.